Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. It's a great pleasure to have our special guest today. I'll talk about her in a minute, but first of all, I am having espresso. Lorraine, I saw you having coffee, but let's see. I'm not technological.
Coffee.
All right, there we are. Cheers on the espresso.
Cheers.
All right. It's crazy to think it has been almost 8 weeks since many of us started the work from home. I know the building Congress, our last day in the office was Thursday, March 12th, with the thought that we'd take a week or two at home and then come back. So it's clearly been challenging, but like many of you, I can tell you, I know I and our staff are busier than ever. And I hear that from a lot of people. So one of our future espressos with Carlo will be talking a little bit about working remotely, how that looks, how it feels, and honestly, how it's going to look in a couple of months, because it doesn't seem like we're going to just turn a light switch on and get everything back to normal. But one of the things we do want to turn a light switch on and get back to normal is capital construction, building New York, design, architecture, engineering, putting up new schools, fixing schools, DDC projects, you get it. And when you think of all of this happening in New York City, you really think about one person, and that is Lorraine Grillo. I call her the czar of construction in New York, but seriousness, I know you like that title, Lorraine, come on. In all seriousness,
I like Zarina.
Zarina, right? Zarina, that's right. Look, I think in all seriousness, if we had to go through something like this and we had to deal with stopping of construction and trying to figure out next steps, there really is no one more qualified and ready to roll up her sleeves and get us through not just this phase, but the reopening and the reimagining of how we get back to work than Lorraine Grillo. I think everybody on this call knows Lorraine. I'm not going to read your bio, Lorraine, because I know you really. We all know you. Clearly, you've gotten us through a lot of things in the past, and I know you're going to get us through this. So really, let's start by saying, first of all, how are you?
Well, I'm great. And Carlo, it's so great to see you. And good morning to everybody on the call. I'm sure I know everybody there. And it's just really, really terrific to get the organization back and to see folks that I miss terribly. But we're good here. Family's good, everybody's good.
Awesome. So I think let's just jump right into it. The question I get all day is, what's happening with my SCA project? What's happening with my DDC project? So maybe, there's been a lot of confusion. And now that we're, settled into this quarantine and this pause, tell us where we are with both agencies, Lorraine, on the project.
Sure, Carlo. Happy to do that. As for DDC, let's start with that. Almost all of our infrastructure projects are ongoing. We really didn't stop because these are things that are essential to the city: sewers, water, that sort of thing, road work. In a couple of cases, contractors on their own asked for a pause because they were seeing some illnesses within their own ranks. But I think most every one of them are back to work. The only issue that we face with those projects, oftentimes when we're doing sewer work, we have to shut water down. And we've got a situation right now where families are home and we can't leave families without running water, for days at a time. So that's a concern, but otherwise that work is ongoing. In terms of the public building side, that work is on pause. And I think more than anything, it's really because all of the city's resources right now are going towards healthcare and all of the COVID issues that we're facing right now. As for SCA, We were on a complete pause for several weeks. We've recently restarted, I think it's 5 of the schools that are scheduled to open this September. We don't want to miss any dates. I always say this, I've been president for 10 years, and 10 years we have not missed an opening day, and I don't intend to start right now. We have a few projects, right? We have a few projects on the capital improvement side that for safety purposes were continued, but the rest of that is on pause as we speak.
You know, Lorraine, one of the questions I've gotten from many people, and actually it's a curiosity of mine as well, is given the fact that kids won't be back in school and educators won't be back in school till the end of August at the earliest,
Right.
Wouldn't this be the
Right.
perfect time to get school projects done? There's a lot of pointing that needs to happen, window repair, you know, things of that nature. Isn't this like a great time
Sure.
to go into work and have so much done?
I agree. I couldn't agree more, Carlo, but as you know, with the current crisis, there's a cash flow problem in the
Right.
city. And so if the federal government would come through with the money that should be, you know, fed into this city to face the crisis, we could do exactly that. So yeah, I get it. But also when I ask my contractors to do work, I expect to be able to pay them.
Right. Yes, we would agree with that.
Yeah.
In terms of design services, I know there are many people in the design community on the call. How are we looking at that for things moving forward? Both
Again,
in SCA.
again, on both sides, those projects right now are on pause. And it really has to do with resources. And it really also has to do with how we are going to move forward as a city and what projects will go forward. One of the things that we're really hoping for is, again, the federal government not only giving us stimulus money, but also finally passing an infrastructure bill that will allow us to move forward. Because, you know, infrastructure, while it will spur the economy on, it will also have long-term positive effects for the city. So we're really, really hoping that, you know, the feds will come through.
We agree. Obviously, other than health and safety right now, which is number one, I think our biggest priority for the Building Congress, at least, is getting federal infrastructure dollars right in the hands of New York City and New York State, and I think that's important.
Well, we're with you.
Yeah. You know, as you start thinking about the future, the pause will be lifted at some point. We will get back to work. We will go back to designing and building. Maybe not the way we did before, but there will be some things, new projects that have to happen. How is this?
I'm sorry, Carlo, I can't hear you right now. Sorry. Sorry, could you repeat that, Carlo?
Yeah, sure. I said, as we move forward and as we lift the pause, and maybe not all the things like yesterday will happen, but some projects will have to go. There will be new schools, new projects, etc. How do we prioritize moving forward, both at DDC and SCA? What are things that should happen, and what are things that maybe could wait a little bit?
Well, I can speak to some of the things that we believe should be a priority. For example, the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, really, you know, that's another crisis that could come anytime, and we need to protect New York. And that project will do it, and we are moving forward with that. We expect that we will start with a shovel in the ground in the fall. And we're not going to stop something like that, because that has the potential to, do real damage to this city. So we have to be really careful. There are other projects, for example, in Southeast Queens that we are continuing and we need to continue having to do with water and sewers and the like. So those are all things, our systems are old, they have to be replaced. And so that work needs to go forward. Again, on the school side, obviously, we've talked about this, you and I, for many decades.
Yes,
about
many
overcrowding
years.
and solving that problem. Many, many years. And we need to face it, we need to deal with it, and we need to finally have great classrooms for every single kid in this city. And so that's one. And also, we have a large portion of our schools right now are buildings that are over 100 years old.
Right.
So there are going to be ongoing needs there. And we have to look at it from lots of different lenses. One of them, for example, is ADA compliance. Another one has to do with resiliency. All of those components have to go into how we move forward.
Right. Well, look, I think the Building Congress is your partner in this, and whatever we can do to help move forward. We have some of the greatest talents as part of our membership, both in construction and design, and I think they're ready to help you. And now's the time for everyone to come together. I think, I think there was I forget it was the Post or the Daily News yesterday. The headline was that 70s show. And it was really talking about how we don't want to return to the 70s in New York. And I think when we think about what happened back then, it was a lack of investment in the future. I think it's in all of our benefit and all of our duty to really come together and do whatever we can to invest in the future.
I agree. I could not agree more. We don't want to find ourselves in that position again. And as far as the membership of the Building Congress, again, most of your members and our members have worked with the SCA and DDC, and we're really excited about that because we know that, as far as this city is concerned, we have a wealth of talent.
We do.
That we can always count on.
One of our immediate past board chair is a former president of SCA. And Milo, I know you're on here. Good morning, Milo. And I believe our chair, Elizabeth Velez, who works very closely with you as well, is on here. So good morning, Elizabeth and Milo. Tell us, I know you guys did an incredible strategic blueprint at DDC. And it really talked about the future, and we were part of it and had you come speak at our annual meeting last year. Tell us, has the COVID affected that, or are you still moving forward with that?
Well, in the immediate time, the blueprint right now, we've done an update, a 6-month update, and then we did a 1-year update, but that unfortunately is on pause because of COVID. But the processes that we've laid out in the blueprint are not. We're still moving forward in every area. We have cut down tremendously on a lot of the different components of the process that we went through at DDC. I basically took a lot of the things that I'd learned at the SCA, obviously from Milo, to make things work better. And we've really done amazing work, taking 6 months off all of those processes that we've gotten, paying people in half the time, getting change orders processed, things like that make life better for our contractors, but also allows us to get these projects done sooner. I'll give you one example. We're working with the library systems to do advanced planning, which was never ever done. Now at SCA, we always do building condition assessments every year to see what condition our buildings are in so we know what to focus on in our capital planning. That's never been done on the other side. And now we're working with the libraries to look at their buildings. What are going to be their needs in the immediate future? What is going to be the long-term needs of these buildings, so that we have something to help them make decisions about how we move forward. So it's really been very helpful.
It sounds like that could actually be a blueprint for many agencies across the city as they're looking at whether it's parks or libraries or whatever the public building is. And I put building in quotes.
Agreed.
It'd be great to have an assessment across the city of what the needs are. So once again, Lorraine, you're ahead of the game on that. So it's good. I want to talk a little bit about safety, because obviously that's a big piece of what we're dealing with right now. Has SCA or DDC or both changed your safety protocols and how people are working? Has that changed much, or were you already there?
Sure. No, obviously we are following all the CDC guidelines, the DOB guidelines regarding safety. I mean, just to give you an example, people at SCA, their temperatures are taken, everybody's wearing PPE, everybody's social distancing, all of those things that we feel are necessary to protect our people, as well as our contractors on site. I think that there's a checklist that each contractor has to fill out every single day about who's got PPE, who's got, the right equipment and the like. So I think it's really important. Their temperatures are taken. If their temperature is over 100.5, I believe, they're sent home. They don't come into a job site. So it's really, really important. Obviously, safety generally is something that we have always paid very close attention to. And our safety department at DDC, since we still have so many projects ongoing, they're out every single day going forward and looking at all of these projects. So they've been doing a tremendous job.
That's great. I want to shift a little bit to recovery and the future. What can the industry, the building industry, do immediately and really long term to help you and SCA and DDC and really the mayor and the city come back to life in terms of our role in construction and building? Because I was talking to Fred Dixon, who runs NYC and Company, a couple of days ago, and we were chatting about the critical role construction plays in tourism, because if you're not building airports, if you're not fixing train stations, if you're not fixing the MTA and streets and all the great, if you're not building cultural institutions, tourism does not come to New York. So we are tied, and I use tourism as one example, but the building industry is tied in everything we do, even restaurants. As simple as I have people who are opening up restaurants. I should not say this, but on Monday I was on the Upper East Side looking at a construction site of a new restaurant in a building, and he's blocked. So I just think we are so tied in everything. But for you, Lorraine, what could we be doing to help you rebuild and open up?
Well, that's a really, really good question, and I thank you for that one. As you were asking the question, I was thinking, obviously, the key issue here is getting the federal government to understand the necessity for infrastructure money. We know that, and we can't do that alone, and we need the help of the Building Congress to do that. But I also think from a very kind of a local point of view, we have to begin to rethink what this city looks like. You talked about restaurants, and we're going to need a lot more outdoor restaurants. Right. In order to stay safe. And this, I think people recognize this virus can come back anytime. So we have to prepare ourselves. We have to prepare ourselves with our streets. We have to look at bike lanes, and we have to get used to living with that. We have to provide space for pedestrians. We have to have much more outdoor space for people. So what I can say to to the members of the Building Congress is, particularly on the design side, rethink what this city should look like. To take that, and also on the construction side and also the design side, we now have really begun to depend on technology. And we have to do that a lot more. We have to use artificial intelligence and all of those other things that we need. We need to also rethink how we staff our projects. We have to rethink the construction itself. And you know, that's up to the experts in the field. I'm not. I am simply always looking at ways that this city can change and grow. You know, I listen to the mayor all the time talking about how we should come out of this better. And I really believe that. I think we can't go back to business as usual. We have to look at it differently. We have to modernize, and we have to be prepared for change.
Change is, what's the old saying? Change is the only constant in life, right? And we will change, and we will come out of this stronger and better.
One of the things that struck me when I came to DDC, and believe me, they have a terrific group at DDC, but I would ask questions like, well, why do we do it this way? And they say, you know, I would get a response, well, I don't know, we've always done it this way.
Right.
And we have to stop that thinking. We really do.
I agree. I agree. I think one of the questions I'm seeing, while design and construction are on pause, will your agencies be addressing administrative challenges such as CO approval, payment processing, contract approval? Does that work continue at the agencies?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will tell you, I am so amazed at how people have adapted to teleworking, and that the workflow has been, in some cases, I will tell you this, and you'll appreciate it. One of a road contractors said to me very recently, things are really good. As a matter of fact, actually, I'm getting paid faster, you know? So I think there are some real benefits on people focused on this stuff. Everybody's actually moving forward with all of those processes.
We like hearing when contractors and designers get paid. That's a good thing. You know, I want to get back to thinking differently, and there are a couple of comments, Lorraine, to you, which is thank you for emphasizing rethinking how the city looks like. So I think we all agree that that's important. But as we do look at what the city looks like, one of the big programs that I know we supported, many people supported, including the council, was the jails, the jails. And you know, there's a couple of questions here about an update on the status of the borough jails design build RFP and et cetera. But tell us where we are with that.
Well, the DDC is committed to the jails. We are slightly delayed in the RFP process. I will be honest about that. But we intend to move forward, you know, in the next month or two. And again, all I can tell you is at this time, we are completely and still totally committed to that project.
Great.
That's really the best I can say.
Okay, no, and I think that's fair. And I think it goes back to what we discussed a few minutes ago. As we come out of this, and as we think about, you know, July 1st, when the next fiscal year begins and capital budgets start again, what are the priorities for the city? And, you know, maybe we can't do everything anymore for a year or two, but we still have to do some things because, you know, in my time with Marty Markowitz, I ran capital budgets for many years. So there is a difference between the operating and the capital, and you have a little more leeway with capital than you do with operating, obviously, with bonding and things like that. But again, as you mentioned coastal resilience, critical, no matter what, we have to find money to build that. I would argue that issuing RFPs on the 5-borough jails plan, also a critical thing for the future of the city. Building schools, critical. You know, there are some things that are, what did they say, mom and apple pie, and those are clearly mom and apple pie. So, by the way, happy Mother's Day, Lorraine, and to all the mothers.
Oh, thank you very much.
Are there timelines available for doing business with DDC and or SCA? Or are things just kind of at a stop for now?
Yeah, as I said to you earlier, there are a number of projects. The ongoing projects at DDC, the infrastructure projects are still ongoing. We're still in construction. As I said earlier, we are on pause on a lot of our designs, our public building side, and as far as new projects at SCA. But, you know, like anything else, this is going to start up. Question, I don't know exactly when, and I'm not going to lie to you, but I am going to say that, you know, we're going to, depending upon, you know, what the federal government does, and depending upon the cash flow and the like, we're going to have to prioritize projects and then move forward, hopefully slowly, and then getting faster and faster and faster.
Right, that's great. Somebody asked about modular construction. Given the changes, are you going to start looking at, I know you mentioned technology and innovation. Is modular something you think about for either agency?
You know, on the SCA side, we actually attempted modular construction a number of years ago. And Milo might remember that because he was president at the time. And, you know, there were some real problems with it for us. The idea of modular construction sounds really great, but when you're building a school and you need a double height gym and you need all kinds of you know, amenities in that school building, a modular building may not work. And in our history, it was not the best choice. And I remember, and Milo can attest to this, there were a number of modular contractors and companies that were interested and began to do work for us. And before the end of that era, all 4 of them had gone out of business. So we don't want to get stuck into it. But let me give an example where modular might work. Okay, on the DDC side, for example, everybody always talks about comfort stations and parks and things like that. You know, a 1-story facility that might work. That's something we should look at. So, you know, there are opportunities out there for modular construction, but not really very successfully when we did them for schools.
Okay, that's fair. One of the questions we have from, and this is from a few people in higher education, is with the governor's announcement yesterday of working on this new big project on reimagining schools and buildings and things. The question, how does that affect school construction, both on a local level and then colleges and universities? Does that change your thinking, Lorraine, or are you full steam ahead? Well,
again, you know, it's interesting that you're asking that question because I recently got a call from the gentleman who's in charge of capital for Washington, D.C. And we talked a bit about putting together a group throughout the country in large cities where, in fact, school construction is a big part of their budget. And for example, when we reopen, we might want to think about, you know, where do we place hand washing stations?
Right.
Where do we put social distancing markings and things like that? So we're talking about it from that perspective. And then in the governor's press conference, he talked about reimagining. And I have a feeling that a lot of this will have to do with technology and how we use it in the future. So yeah, I mean, right now we've been always installing computer stations and the like in the classrooms. That might double, who knows? You know, we're going to work very closely with the educators to see what the best way forward would be. So yeah, we're open to any kind of change.
Great. Great. And I think, we started last year an annual conference called Ascend on innovation and technology and best practices through our Innovation Council. And obviously, we won't have an in-person conference in June, but we will have several web conferences throughout the year. And I think one of the things we should think about is how can some of our great designers and engineers help SCA and DDC think about, how do you move forward? My mother, as you may remember, was a lunch lady in a
Yes.
school in Brooklyn for over 20 years, PS 204, first McKinley and then PS 204. And I remember her and her friends in the kitchen. And every time I went in a school building when I was on the school board, I always started in the kitchen and the cafeteria, because that's really where things get done. But they always, I remember for years saying, we're still serving kids lunch in these cafeterias the way we did when we were in school. When are we going to think differently? And you think about it, right? Social distancing in a cafeteria, kids on top of each other. I bet you cafeterias of the future in school buildings will look different. And I think architects have some great talented ideas on how to make all these changes.
It's interesting. That's one of my pet peeves, has to do with school kitchens.
Yeah.
If you go into a school kitchen now, you will find equipment that hasn't been used in decades.
Yeah.
And I actually work really closely with food services. I mean, there is this huge machine, a bread making machine, that has been standard in every school kitchen since I can remember. And I don't remember the last time anybody in a school kitchen has actually made bread. So we've been working really closely with food services on kind of rethinking the way we should go forward.
Yeah, and by the way, that it's not just the cafeteria, right? It's the gym, it's the classroom, it's honestly the offices. You have buildings where you have 4 or 5 secretaries, parent coordinators sitting on top of each other. I mean, we all are going to have to think differently. On school sites, does this make SCA think a little bit more about outdoor space as you're building new schools?
We'd love to have outdoor space in every single school, as you well know, but there are some communities and neighborhoods where that's almost impossible. So we're always thinking about if, for example, we do a joint project with a developer, there has to be some outdoor space. Sometimes that's rooftop space, because that's the only place you can put that outdoor space. Years and years ago, we used to look for sites that were, 1 acre or 2 acres. Now we're lucky if we get a site that's 15,000 square feet.
Wow.
So you've got to work with what you've got, but we have to include that outdoor space always.
Yes, it's important. One of the things I want to move to now is MWBE. Obviously, I think particularly SCA, you guys have been on the forefront, innovative. I know you've brought that thinking to and the model to DDC, but one of the most severe issues about cutting design work and RFPs and building new schools or fixing new schools is MWBE contractors, because you've built it up so great, Lorraine, that as you cut, they may be the unintended consequences. So maybe let's spend a little time on where you are, where you're thinking, how the MWBE program is going on both agencies, and what we see the future like for that.
Sure. This has been one of the things that, in my 10 years as president, has been always at the forefront of my thinking. It's very, very important. And, we've done extraordinarily well at SCA. And last year, FY19, we had, this was actually, at the end of FY19, $725 million went to MWBE primes. $350 million went to subcontracts for MWBE. I mean, that is amazing. That's $1 billion to MWBEs in FY19. We've already, done this year about $99 million in prime contracts for MWBEs and another $310 million in subcontracts. And we hadn't even hit our bidding season, which is, very upsetting to me because I know we can do really, really well. I am committed, 100% committed to the MWBE world and to, they're the future for our city. They are the future for our city. And we have to continue to support and have them grow throughout this city. And that's not going to let up as far as I'm concerned. The one area that we really had trouble with, but have now begun to really increase, is on the architecture and engineering side. Okay, 18% of our contracts at SCA, 18% of our A&E contracts have gone to MWBEs. We're going to do better, and we're going to continue to do better. But this is really, it's making me struggle because to see all the hard work that has gone into raising up our MWBE program and to have this pause, I know they are hurting the most.
Yes, they are.
And we have made particular efforts throughout our payment process and change order process to make sure that those contractors are paid as quickly as we possibly can. And to know that we can keep them secure. It's really, really important. Now,
that's great.
On the DDC side, we've begun to establish a business development unit that will be able to do things like we do at SCA, which, we're mentoring contractors, we're giving them opportunities that they've never had before. And so that's a program that we're beginning to, but on the DDC side, even without those programs, the last quarter, we were at 32% MWBE utilization, which is better than any other city agency.
That's amazing, yeah.
So we're really, I think one of the things that's really important for anybody in the city is to have the leadership of any agency or any organization be committed to this so that senior staff and have that information flow down to other staff, is everybody's on the same page. And that's what I've found at SCA. We're all committed to this. And I'm feeling the same thing over at DDC as well, which is great.
That's great. Someone's asking about MWBE supplier utilization. Is that something that DDC and SCA look at?
Absolutely. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sorry, but
That's
it's
okay.
certainly something we often look. We actually report on once a month on that information.
Great. Someone is asking about new registrations, including change orders that are not happening. Is that also on pause?
Yeah. Again, we are processing them throughout our agencies. Unfortunately, because of the cash flow, those things are not getting registered. They're not getting pushed out as quickly as we would like. But again, I would like everybody to take a breath and understand we're still with you. We're still working on these things. And I think as soon as we have some opportunity, some cash flow opportunity, those things will get paid because they're all ready to go.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to you on that in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's interesting, just to go back to the MWBE community. I think, and really specifically on school construction, obviously, the amount of new buildings and work happening both in old buildings and new construction has helped build up an MWB contracting community. And again, as we think about the long-term plans for New York and prioritization of what happens next. If we want to keep the MWBE companies strong and not closing their doors, I think we have to look at where we invest our money, and that would seem to be a great opportunity. So I think that's a great.
I couldn't agree more.
Someone asking, they are a 100% WBE architecture and interior design firm. How do they get on the DDC small firm design excellent list to receive RFPs?
That's pretty easy. We have a terrific chief diversity officer at DDC, Maggie Austin. And my suggestion would be to have whomever is interested send Maggie an email, and she will be in contact. She or her staff will be in contact, and we'll move forward.
That's great. Good. And Maggie's amazing. And by the way, I will say this, both teams, both SCA and DDC, you have some of the most stellar people. I think working for you, Lorraine, is a prerequisite to do great things in this city. So thank you.
You know, one of the things that I often say, if I have any skill at all, it is picking great people to do this work, and they've all been terrific. Suzanne Vieira at SCA is a superstar, an absolute superstar.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I could start rattling off names in both agencies. I won't, because I will forget one person, and then I'll get it saying, how come you didn't mention me? But you know, I will say I have to give a shout out to Gail at SCA. Because over the many years of my love for schools, I have bothered you and her many times with school sites. And whether it's been a yes or a no or a maybe, or we'll see, I can tell you she's always at least followed up with people, and you guys are great. So thank you.
Gail is terrific. She's
it's a labor of love. You know, tell people, I really got to know Lorraine when I was first on the school board and then on the Community Education Council. And I spent almost 10 years of my life doing that in District 20 in Brooklyn. And knowing nothing about public school education, I determined my two goals being in service to public education were, one, helping parents navigate the system, because I think that was the most important thing we could do, and two, building schools, because we were so crowded here in Brooklyn and Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst and Sunset Park, and Lorraine, under your leadership and the presidents that you worked for, and then you as president, a lot of great buildings came into being in Brooklyn, and they are helping all communities, native-born, immigrant. It's just incredible to see, and it's created jobs, it's put people to work, obviously construction. So thank you for focusing on that.
Thank you for your advocacy all these years, but I will tell you, my history goes back to being a school board member myself,
right,
in all years. And at the time, I ran the facilities committee. So I kind of had a little bit of a sense 30 years ago that this was going to be my future.
That's awesome. I always forget you're a fellow school boarder. So
right.
Those were interesting days in New York politics. We'll do another coffee talk on school board politics someday.
Right.
We have a couple of minutes left. I know everyone's busy and doing things. Two questions that I think are interesting. Legislative changes that would allow Asian-owned businesses to be counted at DDC. Has that happened? I assume that's for the MWBE program.
I'm not sure. That's the first I've heard a question
Me
like
too.
that. So let me look into it. Okay.
Great.
And Carlo, I'll use you to get back to these folks.
Perfect. You know, one of the things, and this question is, I think, on schools I'm seeing. Obviously, there are different labor unions in terms of schools. There's teachers, there's, you know, DC 37, principals, et cetera. How have they been working with you in terms of figuring out how schools look like in the future? The new software.
again, this is really, as you know, we have an 8-week COVID crisis on our hands. So we really haven't begun the process, but I know, and again, very recently over the last couple of the mayor's briefings every day, he's talked about rethinking the way the city looks, and it led me to thinking that we have to look at how the schools look. I've already been in contact with the chancellor and asked him to start, think about putting a team together, including all of the unions,
Great.
to really sit and go through it and figure out what would be the best way forward. So yeah, I mean, I'm totally, look, anybody who knows me and knows my history, I'm a union person and I believe in them and I am a supporter, and I work very closely with building trades unions. And so anything that is inclusive is what I'm looking for.
That's great. That's great. I want to go back to talking about the teams, both SCA and DDC. Obviously, we're going to get back to work, more than just remotely soon. And you have two incredible teams, both, as we said, SCA and DDC. I do have to give a shout out to Andrew Holwick, who used to work for me at the building company. And we bother him with questions all the time. So, Andrew. But how does it look like moving forward for your staffs? Have you started thinking about how does a city agency adapt to the new normal?
That's a really, really interesting question. And, first of all, every single person that works for DDC and works for SCA is really, really, really important to me. And, we've had, unfortunately, some folks who've been infected. We lost a few people, and we lost a lot of the staff members have lost relatives, parents, and it's been really, really tough. So my goal first is to protect those people and to make sure that they all have jobs and they're all working and they're all moving forward. Will we have to make changes in organization? Perhaps. We'll continually, as you know, at DDC with our blueprint, we've made a lot of changes. For example, we put a committee together of change orders and auditors to sit down to make sure that everybody sits together and we're not passing paper from one department to another department so that a change order takes 6 months before it's paid. These people sit together, they discuss it across the desk, and they make sure they come to resolution. So, we've got ongoing processes within DDC that are making changes that make sense to everybody. At SCA, part of me is, don't change what's working. But again, I think teleworking will become a large portion of what we do. Safety is premier now. It's very, very important. So yeah, I think we still have lots more to think about.
You're getting a compliment here. The labor law compliance team at the SCA is phenomenal.
They really are.
But of course, the follow-up to that is there a similar team at DDC?
There actually is a similar team, which has just really, really begun. Okay, and that's great. Begun under Andrew and myself and the rest of the team. We found that, it's interesting. We've had inspectors and folks like that at DDC that weren't being used appropriately. We need to know that everybody is paying prevailing wage. We need to know this, and that's what they're doing now. And we're modeling through one of the programs that we have, LCMS, we're taking that from SCA and we're modeling it at DDC. So I'm very, very fortunate that these two agencies are in the same building, that we have a lot of the ability to easily trade information back and forth and to use different processes that SCA has had in place and bring them over to DDC. DDC has always been, oh, it's a city agency, so it goes slow. Well, there's no need for that. And we don't believe that. And the people at DDC have stepped up enormously.
Great. That's wonderful. Two questions, and we have about 10 minutes left, so I want to get to these. Two questions on school construction. Will SCA projects be able to work once the pause is lifted? How do you see that happening? And what do you see the future of the pre-K and 3K build out for the future?
Right. Well, to get to the pre-K and 3K, right now, pre-K is ongoing, 3K is on pause. And I think it really has to do with, budgets, not only construction budgets, but, personnel budgets and the like. UPK has been such a tremendous success. I don't think people will stand for stoppage on
No,
UPK.
my daughter is, she's UPK right now. It's the most amazing thing.
It really is. And it's just been amazing to watch these, 4-year-olds going into a classroom and just learning so much. But school construction overall, look, we've been a successful agency. We've been on budget. We've been on time. So as money becomes available, I believe, and I think we all know, the mayor, education is one of his very top priorities. And so I'm really confident that we're going to be able to move forward with a lot of the plans that we've had.
Great, that's exciting. So, I've asked this question of my guests in the past, and we had one of your proteges, Melanie LaRock,
Yes.
Commissioner of DOB, and we both sung your praises. I hope that's back to you, but I will say this: Melanie learns from the best, and she is doing phenomenal work.
It really is. I'm so proud.
Excited.
It's like watching your child grow up and be just so tremendously successful. She's wonderful.
I will also say, Melly and I share one thing in common, which is we both served as chief of staffs to strong, independent-minded people. And I think that's been a good training ground for both of us. So it's a good thing. But tell us about you, Lorraine. How have you been spending your pause? Are you cooking? Are you?
Oh my God!
Is Steve doing all the cooking?
Yeah, no, I'm cooking. It's a couple of things. Before the pause, part of my life was restaurants, probably 4 nights a week, and the other 3.
I know the feeling.
Right, and the other 3 basically getting food delivered,
Right.
And now I'm cooking more than I've cooked in decades. I'm making the sauce, so you would, and the meatballs.
I've been doing a lot of that.
All of that, which is really, really great. You talked earlier about working from home. And it's interesting, anybody who ever said working from home is easier than going to the office is crazy. The difference with working from home is there are no boundaries. People will call you at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. After all, you're home. Why not? You've got nothing else to do. Well, it's been challenging. It really has. I'm on the phone literally 8 hours a day. And without a break, because as I said, there's no lunch hour. There's no getting away from this. Right. You're just there and you're there to answer. And I'm one of these crazy people who, if the phone rings, I'm going to answer it. Doesn't matter when it is. So it's been a challenge, but again, getting to know my husband again and really spending time together. So it's good.
That's great. Well, for those of you that don't know, I happen to be a big fan, not just of Lorraine, but Steve as well. So an interesting question just popped up. Where do you see the future of the mentor program with the SCA and DDC?
Oh, absolutely, stronger than ever. You know, we're going to have some catching up to do after this
Right.
because there's been a lot of, unfortunately, a pause. But no, this is my commitment to this city. I intend to make sure that that program is strong. And with leadership like Suzanne, for example, and now Maggie, who's actually developing a business development unit,
That's great.
we're going to make sure it works and works well. This is a commitment that's very, very important to me.
Great. And for those that don't know Maggie, you should know her because I think she's a leader really in that
Yes.
across the city. Final question, I think just as we're all on pause, construction companies, engineers, design, architects, what should we be doing to gear up, to be ready for when either SCA or DDC says we're back to work? What are things we should be doing right now?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I really think that from on the design side, I really think this is such a great opportunity for them to use their skills to rethink and to use technology in a different way and to really think about what the needs of our kids are for the future. On the construction side, all I can say is safety, safety, safety. Make sure that your folks are protected and that you really are vigilant in making sure that these folks are ready to go to work and they understand more than anything else, nothing else is as important as their health. And that's what we want to see.
Great. Well, I think that's a great place to end our espresso for today. This has been great, Lorraine. Thank you. It was really important for our members to hear from you. Thank you for all you do. Obviously, we're in this together. Happy Mother's Day again. Happy Mother's Day to the moms listening in. We will be announcing our next guest very shortly for next week, so stay tuned. And have a wonderful day. Stay safe. I say this every week. Get out, get some fresh air, wear your mask, shop local, try and, order something here and there, buy a gift certificate from a local store. It's important that we have them when we get back.
Thank you for everything, Carlo, really.
Thanks, Lorraine. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.